All right, and welcome to the show, Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell, building damage experts, coming on our new live podcast on contractortalkpodcast.com, fresh on our YouTube page, Contractor Talk Podcast, and live on Facebook. So this is our new podcast now. No radio commercials, just straight Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell to you, to your ears, with no interruptions. That's what's up. Yeah, you got nothing to play on that one, dude. All right, we got the producer on that one. All right, I don't know how that one applied.
I guess that's more like, it's like straight no chaser, like that type of idea. What, you know, every 10 minutes we're like, what is the time's up again? Then we have to go.
But not now. And I'm your host, Richie Kidwell, and the trusty co-host and attorney, Hans Kennon, is here. We're going to give you some good information and a legislative update today and what's going on in our Florida 2024 legislation year. It's been a pretty quiet year this year, hasn't it?
Strangely quiet, or too quiet, as they like to say. The session started January 9th. And it's now whatever that would be, 21 days in, and really there has not been a lot of activity that I would suggest is that all that impactful to the property insurance or automobile insurance market, at least so far.
Right. So yeah, exactly, like you said, so far, and I'm sure out of like what are you doing there, buddy?
That's our newsroom. For the legislative update.
Oh, my goodness. All right.
All right, Deep Throat.
Well, that's got a couple terms for Joe, but we've seen last minute bills get filed and pushed through very fast, just so they can pull a wool over our eyes, because there are only 60 days in the legislative session. Thousands of bills get submitted, only a few hundred go through to go to the governor to get signed, and it has to go through usually three, at least a minimum of 3 committees in the Senate, 3 in the House. They go to the Speaker of the House to get signed off on, then the Senate President has to sign off on it. Both the bills must be exactly alike, and then they push that the House bill and Senate bill that's exactly alike to the governor. The governor either vetoes it or signs it, and it becomes law.
Right. So
with that, we saw so much change last year and the year before that my head was spinning. There was 4 special sessions, and then a main session that just totally rechanged the landscape of our Florida insurance market. And we've had significant changes. In 2022, December 16, 2022, a major bill was signed by dictator DeSantis that stated that we no longer have prevailing party attorney's fees on any policy that was purchased, any property insurance policy that was purchased or renewed on December 16th or after, and then has a claim. You don't have prevailing party attorney's fees. And what that means is if I have a $10,000 roof, and they owe me for that roof due to a wind or whatever, a named peril that's covered under the policy, and I have a dispute against my insurance company, I have to hire you, Hans Kennon, to file for $10,000 against my insurance company for $10,000. What is that going to look like?
Well, like I said, for the 28 years I've been a lawyer, for the last 27 years, what I would say to the client is, look, I'll get you the money you need to fix your house, and the insurer will pay me separately my fees and my costs. We'll work that out separately. It's not going to involve you. Don't worry, I'm not going to take any of your money. Well, after December 16th of 2022, again, the time is flying. What I now say to the client is, look, you come in here with nothing. If I can get you the full value of the roof, I'm going to have to take typically a third plus costs in order to do that same function I used to do.
So roughly $4,000, roughly
$4,000. So if you have a $10,000 roof, and you came to me before December 16th of 2022, you would get your $10,000 or whatever it is that you need.
Which is just no more than what you were owed. Like
Correct.
$10,000 is the indemnity that you're owed to fix your roof.
Correct. Yeah, there's no frills. There's no extra money in property work. It's not like a personal injury matter where you have what we call intangible or non-economic damages, such as pain and suffering and injury and all those things you would expect. On the property side, the full value is one of economic. What is it going to cost to fix my house? And that's a relatively hard number. I mean, there may be some variation, but essentially a roof is a roof is a roof. It only costs so much to replace that. So from that perspective, again, if you come to me, I'm going to have to say to you, my friend called it the half a loaf. you can, but what for most folks, what happens is if there's been a denial of their claim or a severe underpayment, you come to me essentially with no money at all, with nothing from the insurer. And most of the time I can get you, 70% or 75%. But again, once we take those fees and costs, unfortunately, it does dig into that. So what the legislature has done and the governor pushed for, just so we're all clear about that, the idea that you become essentially self-insured for the cost of your attorney, which is, like we talked about, is not how it should be, because you're only getting what was already promised to you in your insurance contract. So you have to pay me to get what you already were entitled to, which seems to be the most unfair circumstances ever.
That's wild. I mean, since 1893 in the state of Florida, we haven't seen this. This is the first time now that we're seeing it. And I was a very, very big supporter of our governor until I see him change, until I see him get bought out by the insurance lobby, who was in the middle of a quote-unquote fake crisis that said that they didn't have any money. They're going out of business. I can't afford this. But then, here's $100 million. It's like, how in the world? Like, I've never seen anybody that's crying broke mouth come up with $100 million.
Yeah,
never seen that.
No, I agree.
Well, then Governor DeSantis then flips and says, okay, well, we're going to push all of the insurance lobby. Like, literally, they gave them everything they wanted plus the kitchen sink. I mean, it's like everything they've been fighting for that past 10 years. They put it up all on a couple of bills
on a Friday.
Yeah. That was going to be heard on Monday of the following week. Nobody had a chance over the weekend to read it or even understand what the heck it meant.
Because it came out it was like literally like the 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock Friday, set for a Monday committee. I think it was 100 back. There's a whole bunch of bills, but I remember one was about 115 pages. I do this for a living, and I got to tell you, man, it was hard. It was hard reading.
It was bad. They made many changes that not only they started with property in December of 2022.
Yeah.
That was during a special session. And then that following session in March, they pushed through one of the most aggressive insurance reform bills that have ever been mentioned and ever been put up. And it was astonishing to me how they not only went out and ripped the heart out of property, but they took auto, they took medical, they took life insurance and said no more prevailing party attorney's fees. You must bear your own fees and costs. If your insurance company wrongfully denies you, short pays you, or slow walks you, you got to pay your own way.
Yeah.
They're taking advantage of the poor, taking advantage of the middle class because they know that they can't afford to do that. So you're just literally just sucking the money out of the middle class. And it's just unfortunate that these insurance companies, off the backs of hardworking Americans, can sit there and look you straight in the face and be like, oh, yeah, we're in a crisis mode, when we know of many insurance companies doubling their rates because the state of Florida said they could, not because they needed to, because the state of Florida said they could. So they're egregious, they're greedy.
Well, like you talk about like a life insurance policy. Someone has a life insurance policy and the insurer doesn't pay. And obviously life insurance is there for a reason. It's to either assist and everything from funeral expenses to putting kids through college, whatever it may be. Then the insurer doesn't pay a life insurance policy. And you got to come to me and I'm going to look at you again and I'm going to go, well, for the last 20 years I'm practicing law, what I used to say was the insurer would pay me and we'd get you all the money. Now we got to take it from you. So again, the insult to that is the idea that you have to pay me for a benefit you've already contracted for.
Right.
I mean, the unfairness of that. But again, that's what the governor and the legislature put together, and they determined that you as a consumer are essentially in the same financial position, financial footing, access to counsel, all those things that they are, which we all know is not true, because they'd like to have what we call the chilling effect on people coming forth and making claims and then pushing those claims through a lawyer. Because also, in all honesty, there are claims that I had where the amount in issue was relatively low, but the insurer would litigate it for years sometimes. And my bill would sometimes be much higher than even what the insurance company owed my client. Sure. Because they owe me for my time, my hours, and my costs.
Yeah, look at the windshield guys. They're suing literally over $300, but they have hundreds of them.
Yeah.
And on each file, they may get their $300, but you get $2,000.
Right.
For litigating the file.
I mean, and again, that's money that goes to raising rates. When if the insurer simply paid the claim, well, first thing I tell everyone too is if the insurers just paid the claims, I'd be out of business. I've been doing this. I've been I've been practicing first party insurance for 28 years. And again, I looked at it from both sides, from representing policyholders, representing insurance companies. And at some point, even as their lawyer on each side, I go, man, if they just paid these claims, I'd have nothing to do. I'm the Maytag repairman, right? I'm sitting around waiting for something to break.
Right.
But instead, I think they can't help themselves. That is the insurance companies. And they say, well, if we can save 20% on all these claims for a year, that's 10, 20, 30, 40, $50 million. So
they're in the money-making business. Yeah. That's what the insurance company does with your money. They invest it in other things. They sweep it. They make money off of your money, period. Mm-hmm. And so they're not looking for your benefit on that. They're not looking to pay a claim at all. They're looking to delay it, deny it, defend it, and they found that it's a lot cheaper to defend than to keep her. I don't know. I was trying to, but
well, I mean, you take even a more kind of a simple example these days with CDs paying 5%. Mm-hmm. So if you're an insurer and you have $1 million and you put it in the bank for a year, you would make $50,000. You say to yourself, hey, if I could keep that money for one more year, I'd make another 50 plus the interest on the original 50. I mean, and that's the whole concept we talk about delay. Always
delay, deny, defend.
Delay, deny, defend.
Yeah.
So when they delay, all that delay it just turns money into money. I mean, so if you think of
compounding money.
Yeah. So again, for them, every day, every week, every month, every year has a distinct and kind of a defined financial benefit to the insurer that you don't have, simply because you don't have the money.
Right. I mean, they're just analyzing their dollars. That's what the insurance companies do. And again, that's why they make you wait as long as they do before they release the funds. So what they're looking at doing this Florida legislative session is not much. We do have a bill that I'm looking at right now, Senate Bill 102 by Senator Jones, Chev Jones. He's a great senator. He's the head of the Democratic side of the Senate, and what do they call that? The minority leader, and great senator. Whatever. Fuck off. He's sponsoring a bill. It may not get any headway just because it's so Republican rich in the state of Florida right now that most of the Democratic run bills don't get a lot of time, or even get heard on the agenda. And so this bill hasn't been scheduled on any agenda yet, but this bill does some, let's see what it does. Providing the election of a commissioner, insurance regulation, prohibiting the commissioner from engaging in certain activities or employment for a specific period after leaving office, which we saw David Altmaier. He quit 2 weeks before the new year, so he can avoid a 6-year holdback to become a lobbyist rather than a 2-year holdback from the law change. Yep. So there's some strategy there for sure. Prohibiting property insurers from claiming insolvency under specific circumstances. Yeah. Requiring residential property insurers to release specified information to insureds upon request. And that's about it.
Now, it's interesting today at WIN Conference, which is an annual, typically in Orlando. They get a lot of people together who are involved in the property business. There was a discussion that of the, the numbers be a little off and I apologize, that of the 400 or so insurers who are supposed to provide information about claims expenses, what they paid. Their
from Senate Bill 76.
And Bill 76. There was a discussion today at one of the forums that only half of the insurers had reported any information, although the statute requires them to do so. So, I thought that was interesting. This bill we're discussing passed a couple of years ago, and it was supposed to be the first one that was going to be transparent as to what insurers paid their own lawyers, what they paid in benefits, what they paid in fees to someone like myself, and a variety of other data. But again, my understanding is today that only half of the insurers have even bothered to respond at all.
Wow. Well, it's because the Office of Insurance Regulation is not ensuring that they do that. They're not breathing down their neck to do that. And we saw that in the 2021 year when Senate Bill 76 was proposed. David Altmaier, who was the head of Office of Insurance Regulation, even stated that and even wrote each insurance company a letter the following year and saying that that's okay if you haven't turned it in, we'll give you an extension of time.
Another year.
Yeah, I gave him another year. Last year, then we come up and we're like, okay, all this change is coming. We still don't have the data.
Right.
You guys are running around with a solution to a problem that we don't understand yet, that doesn't exist. And they're like, hold on. It will. It doesn't exist now. And then what happened that next year, all of a sudden rates started going crazy.
Right.
It's because the Office of Insurance Regulation went around and said, you guys need to all raise your rates. I'm submitting for a 10% increase. Here's 40. It's like, I just don't get it. They created the crisis, which then made that chilling effect. And then here we are today with allowing the Florida legislatures to make these changes, saying, oh, it's all so we can reduce premiums.
What? Reduce premiums? Where's that?
Where, out of all the bills that were passed for property insurance, how many of those had anything about property or about a reduction?
0.
Nowhere did it say together, like, next to each other. That would be great. Like a premium reduction. Nowhere in all of those pages did that exist. But yet that's why that's what the crisis was about trying to appeal the raising the skyrocketing cost of property insurance. That's what the whole legislature was talking about doing last year, and they did not. They failed.
And even in 2022 with Senate Bill 76, I mean, we are now in 2024. I mean, there's been some time has passed. There's an article in the Sentinel a couple of weeks ago regarding essentially the insurance summit for the Chamber of Commerce. And they were all, and literally the Orlando Sentinel had this article, and it talks about them being essentially gleeful at the improvements in the insurance market from that legislation. Again, it supposedly helped with reinsurance, limited the amount of litigation, obviously took away prevailing party attorney's fees to the consumer. And so we're now almost, we're moving into the close to a year and a half since that bill went into effect. And so far, I haven't heard anybody tell me that premiums have gone down.
Right. I have not heard that either. The only thing we've seen are more exclusions exist to give discounts on policies. So you'll see premiums, quote unquote, start to come down a little bit, but you'll start to see your coverage eroded.
Yes.
That is supersedes that discount, so to speak, that they give you for it. And I'm talking about, like, most policies now have, when we're just looking at another policy recently, where the policy says you have a $5,000 cap on water backup. And then it goes further to say $5,000 on a cap for sewer disbursement, a sewer backup. And you're like, okay, well, wait a minute. So the major ways that my house can get damaged could be a sewer backup or by wind.
Yeah.
Those are the two biggest ones.
Yeah.
So, and wait a minute. So your wind, which would come from a major storm, now you have a 2% deductible. So you're going to pay your first 10 to 15 grand. Right. In the case of that. Or you're capped at $5,000 in case a sewer line somehow backs up and your home is full of poo-poo.
Yeah.
You're literally screwed at that point. Where you're capped at $5,000. So what is your policy really worth? And that's what you need to look at. What am I susceptible for? If I'm in an area that maybe has old plumbing or is on a septic.
Yeah.
I'm not going to want a $5,000 septic backup cap. I'm not going to want that. I'm going to say remove that from my policy or try to find one that exists on it. Then there's these $10,000 limited water damage caps. They call them LWDs or whatever, limited water damage caps. And where it's $10,000 for water damage. And that could be all kinds of different ways, your dishwasher or whatever like that. Things that would normally cost, like my friend had a dishwasher a line mechanical error where it was shooting water out through the drain line every time it ran. So they didn't know because it wasn't pressurized. So the whole island has to be pulled out. Yeah. And it has flooring damage. I mean, it's a $50,000 job all day. And because it affected the flooring and all that. Can you imagine if they had a $5,000 cap? Then you only really have insurance for $5,000. Right. So why are you going to charge me for $500,000 policy when I'm really only covered for $5,000? So know what you're susceptible for. If you're on a septic, you don't want that type of coverage. Yeah. Right. You want to make sure you don't have a limited water damage coverage either, because if you do have that sewer backup and it creates water damage, you're going to be under that cap. So you want to look at those exclusions. And I love how Hans, you've said this before. You're like, when you're looking at a policy, look at the deck page and look at the exclusions and the limitations. Yes. Those are the parts that are gold.
Well, we always look at when your agent calls you, and they're trying to save you money, and there's nothing wrong with that. But they may call you and say, "Hey, I can save you $500," and that's a lot of money. You can save yourself $50, $60 a month. I mean, that certainly adds up. We always want to ask, for what? What am I losing? Because they're not offering you a discount just because they like you, just because anything along those lines. And there's certain things, certain types of discounts you can obtain by the year of the home, hurricane straps, certain types of things. But in addition to those more fixed items that you see on most policies, again, they'll discuss other items that would bring down your cost. But usually it involves you losing coverage, losing some value.
Right.
Things such as the sewer backup, the LWD, the limited water endorsement, those types of things. But again, your agent's going to call you because they could actually just take it away from you in the policy renewal. But there's issues potentially with that for what the lawyers call consideration for that. So they'll say, we'll give you $50 or $100 or $200 per year, and your agent will probably say, the odds of that are really low. Well, that's why you have insurance, because there are things you don't expect to happen. Mm-hmm. If you expect them to happen, then you can deal with them and address them along the way. But the purpose of insurance, like Richie said, is to cover things that go wrong, that are sudden and accidental. So again, if you have a $500,000 policy and you say, hey, I got $500,000 in coverage, I'm good. The reality is, for the average standard losses, the wind loss, the sewer backup, the refrigerator water line that breaks, the dishwasher that backs up, the toilet that backs up, a tree that falls on your home, those things typically all have limitations as to what their actual payment needs is capped at. Mm-hmm. So your $500,000 really only applies if the house burns to the ground,
right?
Or gets blown, or literally blown, like tornado, gone, fire to the ground, is the only time the insurer actually owes you the full value of coverage A, which is the dwelling coverage.
Right, and that's with the damages supersede your coverage A policy limit. So
right.
Total loss at that point.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Catastrophic at that point. Now, again, I mean, most of us aren't going to deal with those type of catastrophic losses in our lifetime.
Thank goodness, yeah.
Right, and so, but there are those minor losses that we do endure in our lifetime. I had a claim earlier on in my early 20s, and I haven't had a claim. Well, I had one claim since then. And so out of 25 years, I have 2 claims. So I think is true about one every 10 years or once in a lifetime. Is you get that time of where you have to figure out, okay, do I need to file a claim? Is this something that's where I have the coverage for? How can I apply this here to this, whatever that is, a roof, a water loss, those types of things that are going to cost you a lot of money. You don't want to hodgepodge the repairs, as many people do. I did when I was in my early 20s.
Sure.
Got a little amount from my insurance carrier, and I made it work.
Right.
And I was like, cool, but if I would have known, I would have replaced my tiles in my house. I would have replaced my bottoms of the kitchen cabinets, and nope, I had to match the top. And then I had mismatched cabinets,
right.
because I repaired it myself. And, I would have known that there was line sight coverage, light, kind, color, material coverages in every HO3 policy, as the state of Florida has in our statutes. That would have replaced all of that. It all would have looked the same, but I didn't know that, and so.
Which is one reason why they don't want you to have a good contractor who's familiar with insurance.
Exactly, because they'll come in there, they'll tell you what to do, and then there you go. That costs the insurance company more money. So they're always trying to make us the bad guys, and it's the ones that are playing the commercials over the Super Bowl that don't have your back. They're not a good neighbor, and they just don't pay claims. I don't get it. I mean, they're not bad at paying claims paying claims over at Farmers. Not too bad. Who's their main company? Is it Truckers?
Truckers Exchange, yes, is kind of their underwriting company. It's a reciprocal, as they call it. But obviously, unfortunately, Farmers insures my house right now. But they're leaving the state of Florida, so I'm not very happy with them.
Right. And again, or to continue our discussion topic on what other legislative law, what type of bills have been sponsored so far during this Florida legislative session in 2024. We're only a few weeks in, and we've only seen 2 bills filed for property insurance. One of them is one I just read off by Senator Jones, which is Senate Bill 102. There's another bill that's out. It's very similar to this one, has similar language in there, has some other protections for homeowners. You can't be canceled midway through your policy, and then insurance companies can't go insolvent under certain conditions or whatever. Man, I would love to see some legislation that would not allow insurance companies to allow for these crazy caps, these endorsements. And I know Office of Insurance Regulation is the one that sets this up, but there's got to be some sort of statutes that protect the homeowners a little bit better.
Of course. I mean, and there really is nothing out there, even on an HO3 policy, which only really requires some basic things to be provided. The rest of the endorsements, I mean, you look at your policy, if you ever look at your declaration sheet, which is the thing that tells you how much your coverage is, usually there's a page or a column for endorsements. And sometimes you'll see 20, 30, 40 endorsements, which are things that primarily take away coverage. Occasionally they add things in. They usually add things in you don't need. But you'll see the endorsements are also used to take out coverages from your HO3 or homeowners policy. So, and again, those are things that the Office of Insurance Regulation has to approve, because none of those things just come in a vacuum from the insurer. So keep in mind, your elected officials and your folks from Department of Financial Services who oversees that office, if you're unhappy with how your policy is worded, unhappy with the endorsements that your insurer's been allowed to apply against you, that's still an elected position. You can still vote your way into arguably a better policy. So never underestimate the power of voting. I know people get very down on it these days. But if you don't vote, you definitely can't change anything. And again, when you have people you don't like running Department of Financial Services, that certainly has an impact on your policy and what they're allowed to do. And you want someone stronger, a better watchdog, or what the insurers are going to do, then you got to vote and find out if you can't make a change that way.
That's right. And finally, there's the only other bill out that is in the property insurance realm this Florida legislative session, Senate Bill 1556, very similar to Chevron Jones, Senator Jones' Bill 102. Has a couple of different add-ons, maybe similar to the House version of that companion bill, which it talks about a couple of other things. It talks about Office of Insurance Regulation, the commissioner, time in which they have to hold back before they can work for certain companies after they leave. Let's see, prohibiting property insurers from using specified factors as a defense for a denial of a claim. Well, that'd be interesting. Not a whole lot that moves the needle as much.
Right.
They're not talking about attorney's fees, bringing them back. They're not talking about any other help for consumers. It does mention in the bill about certain insurance companies not going insolvent based off of certain criteria. But again, you look at Senate Bill 76. It was several years ago that said all insurance companies must, by statute, give me all of these expenses on these breakdowns. Nothing, crickets, and even still now, many of them haven't turned them in, and I'm sure those are the ones that haven't turned them in are the biggest offenders.
Right,
I'm sure. That's why they're not turning it over. You know, and or that the information is that bad that it shows the insurance companies are that bad at their job that they're the ones that are creating all this. They created the crisis, right? I mean, they're the ones that are that made it look like the claim volume is out of control, and then they didn't do that. You know, they wrongfully deny people and slow walk people on purpose so they can save money. Nothing in this Florida legislative session this year is going to combat any of that. There's still nothing about reducing premiums here in the state of Florida. That's unfortunate. So two major bills out. They both say the same thing. The House and the Senate bills are both very similar, in which it doesn't really do much to move the needle, in my opinion. So that's kind of where we're at this year.
So I agree with that. Everything they have out there is not geared to be completely consumer assistive, if that's a word, not to lower your premiums, not to provide you more coverage at a lower rate. So at this point, the rates are still going to be where they are, but they're set again by Department of Financial Services and Office of Insurance Regulation. The insurers do not themselves set their rates per se. The state has to approve them. So again, if you're unhappy with that, you can let the state know.
That's right. That's right. Now, the state of Florida does have a website, Office of Insurance Regulation. So if you type in Florida Office of Insurance Regulation, they have a part on the website where you can shop home insurance, auto insurance, and all that stuff, which is a few parameters, what county you live in, certain amount of coverage, and it'll give you a list of names of insurance companies and prices. Then you can go to each one of their websites and get a quote from each one of those on your specific address based on your roof type and the age of the home and all those different factors. So I encourage you to check that out if you're shopping for insurance. I am currently, as I'm coming up for renewal, I've started to see these different exclusions in my policy too, limitations, those types of things, endorsements that will give me only a certain amount of coverage. So I will be going back to my agent because it's renewing in March and tell them, listen, I don't want any of this crap. Like, I don't want these $10,000 caps or these sewer backup caps. Find me a carrier that doesn't have that. If you can't find me as an agent, a carrier that offers a policy without these exclusions or limitations, then I'll find a different agent that will hook me up with an insurance company that can. Yeah. Many insurance companies are entering the Florida market now, especially in light of all the law changes. I think it's going to encourage insurance companies to come here, and that'll just make more competition and make the pricing come down.
Yeah, I agreed.
So fingers crossed for that to happen, especially now between now and March when I have to renew. But no, I thank you guys for watching the Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell podcast, talking about the legislative session, which is super boring, but we did make 30 minutes, though, go by pretty fast about this legislative session and about insurance premiums regarding your property insurance. And, if we can offer you some help and assistance on this specific topic, if you learned something today, go to our website or go to our YouTube page, find us, like us, follow us, and you can listen to other podcasts and topics that we do here on the show. We talk to contractors, we talk to consumers, we talk about Florida legislative events that change our insurance market here. We have folks on the show that are in the property damage world, such as plumbers, Servpro guys that do the dry out, the build back guys, the contractors, the drywall guys, the AC guys that we've had on here. So we bring this information to you, and even somebody that could be in your Rolodex. If you're here in Central Florida, the folks that we have on here do great work. And we try to bring you the best information we can. Again, go to our Facebook page, Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. Go to our YouTube page and find us on our website, contractortalkpodcast.com, if you want to hear more shows like this on topics revolving around this industry. Thanks for being on the show with us, Hans Kennon, and he's always giving out his cell phone number here. So if you need a lawyer, then get out your phone, type in Hans Kennon lawyer, and go for it. How do they get a hold of you?
Phone number is 407-782-0258. That's 407-782-0258. If you need any help, just you let me know, and I'm happy to talk about any area of the law that you want to talk about.
All right. I hope you guys had or at least learned a lot here on this podcast. We have many more to come here on Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. See you guys. Peace.